The Chiefs made a resounding statement, and the Royals just completed a winning season. But was it a good one? We break down both teams, and I'll have some final thoughts on SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR. It's Tuesday, September 30th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. What a victory for the Chiefs, unexpectedly bashing the Baltimore Ravens 37-20 on Sunday. Chiefs beat writer Pete Sweeney is here to explain what happened at Arrowhead and look ahead to the next game against a suddenly hot Jacksonville Jaguars team. What's up, Pete?
Hey, Blair, this is an interesting podcast, I think, for you, because I know you guys are going to talk about the death of the Royals, and it feels like the Chiefs have new life. I think for a second there, everyone thought in Kansas City maybe there was no team to root for, but yeah, the Chiefs feel like they're back, and it does feel like there's a lot of national media members after this game saying, okay, we were wrong once again.
They're back on board, aren't they?
They're back on the train. They are.
So I know we're a few days away from the game at Arrowhead on Sunday, but what were the big accomplishments for the Chiefs in this one? I guess we can start offensively. And, of course, Xavier Worthy being back made a big difference. But I just thought Patrick Mahomes looked as sharp as he has in a game in quite a while.
Yeah, I think it's been a 2 to 3 year process of them being able to find protection for him. I found it interesting, and generally, Andy Reid and Mahomes don't usually want to give a lot away, and sometimes I think they keep things close to the vest. But if you really notice, asking them about Mahomes, and it really looked like he was playing free after the game, they both mentioned the protection right away. And I really think this offensive line that, brought some worry going into the season because you essentially had 2 new members. You felt iffy about Juwan. Juwan had some struggles early in the year, clean sheet in this game. Kingsley Suamataia, I know was mentioned yesterday, via PFF graded best he has. Josh Simmons has been everything as advertised. And over the years, we've seen still the glimpses of the quote-unquote Mahomes magic. But the real magic and the real time where he looks like the best player in the world is when he feels like he can operate. And I think as much as Xavier Worthy helped, and he certainly did, I think the protection finally hitting its stride has really unlocked that Mahomes maybe from 21-22.
Is there one player on that offensive line whose performance may have exceeded expectation in that regard?
Well, I think it's Kingsley. And you know what? Kudos to the Chiefs. I remember being on either the old podcast or this one, getting old here. But I remember saying in preseason training camp, I can't see what they're doing with Kingsley. It just doesn't look like it works. I know Jaylon Moore would be playing out of position, but they need to yank him. And I think the Chiefs were steadfast in saying, no, this is a second-year player. He's in a position change. There are going to be lumps. If we yank him too fast, his career is over. We're going to give him an opportunity. And I think you're finally seeing Kingsley hit the stride that they saw and foresaw in this season. And that's huge. I know a lot of people were questioning whether Simmons would be ready way ahead of training camp. That became pretty clear that he fit the part right away as we watched each day at training camp and then the preseason. Kingsley was the question mark. And if Kingsley is going to be good, and maybe now we're just a little worried about Juwan's stability at right tackle, now Jaylon Moore can enter, and he's not playing out of position. Guard would have been playing out of position. So, yeah, to me, this has felt a lot better as far as confidence.
And when you talk about the offensive line, we not only consider the pass protection, but how the Chiefs performed in the running game. And they didn't have statistically the type of game I thought they could against a Ravens team that came into the day ranked 30th, I think, against the run. And the previous week, the Lions had just run all over them. But it was an effective running day. They were good on short yardage situations, third and short, fourth and short. Isaiah Pacheco had a couple of decent runs. It was still an under 100 yards day for the running backs, but
the leading rushers this year in 4 games are Mahomes, Xavier Worthy, and I think Isaiah Pacheco, right?
Yeah, I think he's the other. It's the Giants.
The 2 running backs have gotten the 1 leading rusher. I think I've seen the run game go, and in that order, bad, okay, and this felt fine. Like you got enough. You outgained Derrick Henry together, which I think was the goal. If you could say ahead of the game, Pacheco and Hunt combined are going to have more rushing yards than Derrick Henry, I think you feel pretty good about winning that game. And so that's what happened. Again, I think in the second half, looked a little bit better. That was my question to Andy Reid on Monday, just about what's been going on with the slow starts. And we talk about the grades that we see in PFF. Andy Reid, Andy Heck, the offensive line coach, they know all the assignments, and Reid sort of pointed to, well, if one guy isn't doing something right, whether that be a back who hits a wrong hole, there was a clear one where it looked like Pacheco should have went outside. He cut it in and probably cost himself like 15 to 20 yards. That one comes to mind. But it could be the offensive line doing something wrong, not being in the perfect spot to scheme up the run game. And so still, I think it's an operational struggle, but it is gradually getting better. I know a lot of people were hoping that the Chiefs would trade for a back. I still don't think that's out of the question, but a lot of these deals will happen closer to the deadline, which we're still a few weeks away from.
Was the Leo Chenal interception the defensive player of the year? Not player, but I say play. It was the defensive play of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you take into account the magnitude that it had on this game, I mean, if you really remember at that point, and it feels crazy to think about one of these like crazy games, the Ravens felt like in the first possession and a half that they were going to roll the Chiefs. Seamlessly go down the field, score a touchdown in the first drive, gaining yards in chunks in the second drive, and then all of a sudden, it's great delayed blitz call looked like by Steve Spagnuolo, where Bolton gets in Lamar's face, clearly overwhelmed. That's clearly been on tape, maybe dating back to the last time the Chiefs had played them and then with the Lions, and then throws it up in a one-on-one ball. And look, 9 times out of 10, if you've been Mark Andrews or Leo Chenal's going to come down with a one-on-one ball, I'm probably picking Mark Andrews. But on this one occasion, the ball was a little underthrown because of the pressure. And Leo, I think, not only was it sort of one-handed, where he's able to corral one-handed, but just turned around at exactly the right time. That's not like football IQ and sense that they talk about, and probably saw something in Andrews looking up, turned around, and was able to make the play. And it reversed the entire course of the game. You will never know this, right? You're always thinking about hypotheticals, but what happens if they just score a touchdown on that drive?
It's 14-3 for starter.
How does that entire game play out? So that was just such a huge play for not only the game, but the season.
Okay, we're here with Chiefs beat writer Pete Sweeney. Let's turn our attention to the Jacksonville Jaguars, off to a surprising 3-1 start. New coach Liam Cohen actually got into a little verbal tussle with 49ers defensive coordinator.
I used to say that like those red ass guys don't get rewarded, but then we've seen Nick Sirianni win like 20 of the last 21 games.
And the Super Bowl, yeah.
So red ass your way all the way to the Super Bowl if you have to, yeah.
Yeah, I got into it on the field after the win at San Francisco. Pretty impressive win by the Jaguars. And God, they had 3 or 4 more takeaways in this game. They've had at least 3 in each of their 4 games this year. It's unbelievable what the Jaguars are doing defensively. All of a sudden, this game looks a little more salty than it might have before the season starts.
Yeah, I think going into it and going into the Ravens game, we've said it. I think the Chiefs need to be 3-3 when Rashee Rice gets back. And as you were looking at the calendar of games that he missed, I think you were simply counting the Giants as a win, easy, and then you were counting the Jaguars as a win. Oh, they'll get that one. Even they don't need Rice. The defense is playing well. Andy Reid noted that. They're going to be going up a pretty good front here against Jacksonville, and in terms of bottling up the run, and that's still a weakness. So it does make it more interesting. They're scoring enough points to win. Nothing overly impressive. Trevor Lawrence has been like a little bit up and down. But again, yes, I think you nailed it on the head. I think this is a tough spot. You do get an extra day, which always helps Andy Reid. Anytime you put a little extra time in there to prepare, I think it helps the Chiefs as far as, what the offensive preparation is going to be. But this is a tougher game than advertised, and certainly one that the Chiefs shouldn't overlook as you are approaching what I think a lot of people thought last year's Super Bowl might be, which was the Chiefs and the Lions that next week.
I wonder where Travis Hunter will get most of his snaps. The two-way player for the Jaguars. I think he was on 58% of the offensive snaps against San Francisco and 39% of the defensive snaps. We'll have to see. Let me ask you, what do you make of Trevor Lawrence and his career? You mentioned him, the Jaguars quarterback. He was a national championship winner at Clemson, played in another national title game, had some great weapons with him there, including the Jaguars' current running back, Travis Etienne, who's off to a great start this year as well. But Where does Trevor Lawrence rank in the pantheon of NFL quarterbacks?
He's got kind of the Alex Smith thing going on, and I think you feel for him in that sense. I really liked him as a prospect coming out. I know a lot of people did. I thought he would be the real deal. But if you look at his path, the disaster that was Urban Meyer, not flying home with his team, and quickly, exits. He's got an interim coach in Darrell Bevell, old friend in Doug Peterson that looked like it could be a boost, and then all of a sudden, it kind of petered out. No pun intended there for him. And then now you have Liam Cohen, and I think he's progressing. But like Alex Smith used to tell us this, when you have different offensive play callers and different offensive plans and schemes as you go year by year by year, it becomes a lot tougher to get into a groove. Underrated part of why I think, Mahomes and Allen have been so good. There's just been some consistency as far as leadership. And so I think he's looking a little bit better. I think they're trying to get him to be unlocked into that top 10, top 5 upside. We'll see what he can do against the Chiefs. Very clearly, as evidenced by last week, you're going up against the best defensive coordinator in the league who's really going to plan to the weaknesses you've shown on film these first 4 weeks.
So he's got Trevor Lawrence, 1 Pro Bowl appearance in his 5 seasons, 1 playoff appearance, a victory, and that was a heck of a win. If you recall, remember the Jaguars came from way back to beat the Chargers, and that was the Jaguars team that I think came to Kansas City the next week and lost in the divisional round. But yeah, I'm still kind of I'm with you. I thought he was a big time prospect coming out of Clemson. He had all those weapons there, but again, different coordinators, different coaches. I think it's tough for a quarterback to get that kind of traction.
Right. And a little nerd nugget, I believe that Jaguars playoff game was the last Jaguars game for Jawan Taylor, who ended up, I believe, playing his next game in Arrowhead as a member of the Chiefs. So, in fact, odd back-to-back game. But yeah, I'm not someone who feels like the jury is out necessarily on Trevor Lawrence because of the path that I mentioned. I think that upside is still there. This is a tough ask. I wouldn't want to ever go against Spagnuolo, as I mentioned. You see Lamar Jackson. This is a 2-time MVP, and how curved he was. And so still a guy, unfortunately for him, that, his 5th or 6th year here, I believe it's the 5th, still developing because of, I think, some of that. And so I think the Chiefs have the advantage in this game, and that may be where it comes from. Just still a quarterback trying to find himself versus Steve Spagnuolo, who knows exactly what he's doing right now.
All right, Pete Sweeney, thanks for the update.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will talk Royals, who concluded their season with a winning record, but not a playoff appearance. We're back on SportsBeat KC and talking baseball with Royals beat writer Jaylon Thompson. Hello, Jaylon.
Hey, how you guys doing? Hey, Blair.
Star columnist Sam McDowell. Hi, Sam.
How's it going?
And yet another star columnist, Vahe Gregorian.
Hi, Blair. Glad to be with you all.
Well, good to have you here, Vahe. It's always good to have you here. Well, we just spent about 45 minutes wrapping up the Royals with manager Matt Quatrero and general manager J.J. Picollo. I thought was pretty revealing, enlightening. Some good stuff came out of there. What was the biggest impression that, Jayla, we'll start with you, biggest impression that you got from the press conference that ended the Royals season?
I think, Blair, it was a lot of disappointment, and that's to be expected, knowing that they went 82-80, they made the postseason. But I also felt like they know exactly what needs to be added this offseason to be able to get back to the playoffs again. One of the big things that stood out to me was the fact that they understand that the offense needs to be adjusted, and they're going to do everything they can, whether it's evaluating the coaching staff or the personnel that they have in the building to take that offense to the next level. It seemed like to me when they were going to the positions, they pretty much were set on 7 of the 9 spots. You can probably look at second base and left field as something where they might consider, whatever they have in the building or platoon options and whatnot. But they seem like they know what they need to do. And, injuries are always something where it can rattle a team or take them out of a position where they need to be. But they were in the playoff hunt into the final week. So I think it's a matter adjustments and fixes, and they'll be right where they want to be in their estimation.
We've all got our notebooks out. There was so much to repeat. I got like 5 pages of notes from that press conference, and put stars by what I thought were some of the highlights. But Jaylon, you hit it 82-80, but didn't a winning season, a winning record for the second straight year, but did not make the postseason, which is starting today, with 2 games in the American League and 2 in the National. So, Vahe, what was your big impression?
It's somewhat similar, Blair, to what Jaylon said. I would say that they obviously they're disappointed, but I think they have faith in the nucleus of where they are, as spoken to by Jaylon, with the number of positions you feel like are set, and obviously the depth they're going to have in starting pitching. We can talk about that more, but I think also they have the self-awareness to realize that there's a lot they could do better and differently. And one of the thoughts I had coming out of there is how much they've got to win in the margins. And they can have a lot of similar numbers offensively, but you can't have the runners in scoring position hitting being what it was. You can't have the base running gaffes be a signature of the season. And something they've spoken about a little bit over time, and it'll be interesting to see how they address this in the offseason, is they sort of overestimated the leadership they had in the young core. And I think they saw that improve with the veterans they picked up in the offseason. But I think there'll be in their roster construction coming into this season, they'll be conscious of that, which could be reflected in whether Mike Yastrzemski's back, but in other moves as well.
Like Frazier and Krejcik, I thought that was interesting too. That's a thing. That I didn't think about that as the clubhouse influence component of bringing in those veterans and how that helped them in the clubhouse in August, September.
It did, and what was really interesting about it, he addressed it again today for sure. But there was one day in the dugout in August when I thought J.J. Piccolo was quite candid about that had been an actual deficiency of theirs until they had brought in some of the veteran guys, that they needed more there, whether it was glue or composure. So I think all this is to say I think they have some important self-awareness.
Sam, manager Matt Cotrero just came out and flat said it. They were disappointed with this season, even with I think I looked at this recently. This was the 7th 500 or better season in the last 31 years for the Royals. 2 in a row, but only 7 in 31 years. And what a mindset change that is here, to be disappointed with an above 500 record.
Yeah, I mean, this season's only going to fall into place, I think, when we know how the next 5 years look, really, which is is this their new low, or is this a good season for the Royals? Because if this is their new floor, then, we've seen the Rays the Rays probably aren't happy with their season, winning 77 games, I think it was, but that's what has become their floor now. The St. Louis Cardinals across the state won 70-something games, and they're having today, their press conference today is introducing a new GM, for example, or for whatever the title they have for it. Because they haven't made the playoffs a couple years, it's sparked change. That's their floor now. This group wants this to be their floor. And if that's the case, if you don't make the playoffs and you go 82-80, and now you build back up, that's one thing. But, historically, this franchise, this would have been a celebratory season. We just would have been talking about what a great year they had. They snipped the playoffs. They were playing meaningful games until the very last week of September. And that's why, to me, it's going to be a little bit difficult to put this into context until we know what the next half decade looks like.
Am I remembering right? Was the 2013 team 82-80?
No, they were 86-76.
They were that far up the ladder.
They were, but had been eliminated from the wild card. Of course, there were fewer teams in the playoffs then, and they'd been out for several days.
That's right, but that was the first winning team that they'd had in 2 decades.
Yes.
Maybe
Early 03.
the shortened season.
Which was the fluke year. No, not short season.
Oh, that was a fluke year, right?
But it was a fluke year.
Yeah.
They got off to a fast start.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's an imperfect analogy, but that proved the springboard. Of course, what's inside out about this, and one of the reasons everybody has a more sour feeling, if they went 82-80 last year after the 56 win season the year before, it would feel different, right? But
If the seasons were 82 last year and that playoffs this year, it would definitely feel different.
Yeah, I think the reasoning just from spring training, everyone was saying we want to make the win the division and go further in the playoffs. So that's why that frustration and disappointment is there, because you really didn't do what you should have done to make the postseason. And I feel like this year it would have been an easier road to make the postseason as far as the teams that made it and the games that you played against those teams. We saw this team face the Toronto Blue Jays and put up 20 runs. And they won the season series against the Blue Jays, taking 4 of the 6 games. So
The number one seed.
the number 1 seed.
The American League, right. Vahe, you mentioned it earlier, the repeating what J.J. Piccolo talked about, that some of the deficiencies with this team. They didn't run the bases very well this year, and they certainly didn't hit well with runners in scoring position. They left a lot of runners on base. What I guess couldn't be answered is why, because they did both pretty well last year.
the base running one is the one that's most curious, right? Because I know Sam has spoken to this and written about it very, very in depth before. The fluctuations in runners in scoring position is sort of its own beast, right? But you can control your base running, and it came off as sloppy and undisciplined and random. And I looked this up the other day. I don't want to just single out Kyle Isbell, but on opening day he had a base running gaffe, and afterwards, speaking with him afterwards, he said he basically just sort of shrugged it off and said, "We're going to continue to make aggressive mistakes." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're going to continue to make aggressive mistakes." And I know what he meant. I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but the point is that never really reset. And I don't know if you can quantify how many more games it might have won him, but let's say a couple, 3, 4 might have gone differently if not for that, and that could change the whole dynamic of where they were. So I think, just speaking casually with the Royals, I mean, I think J.J. Piccolo has said this on the record before, they started to squeeze too tight, right? You're not scoring, and now you're doing things that are out of character to try to make up for it. That was one of his explanations, but you do have to wonder where the fundamentals were being taught and at what level in the chain something was also off. It can't just be accounted for like we're trying too hard. There was, I think, more to it than that.
I do think that this running and scoring position thing has been way overblown. Like, they were top half the league in runners in scoring position average this year. It's just that they were so good the year before. I think they were led the American League or first or second the American League the year before, that I think, like, that's the outlier. You typically do not lead the league in batting average with runners in scoring position. When you finish 12th or 13th, like, that's literally about average. And I don't think that the Royals' solution to scoring more runs is becoming better with runners in scoring position. They were fine with runners in scoring position. The base running thing is a real issue that they need to clean up. I thought it was interesting. I asked Q about how the offense scores more runs. If you're bringing the coaching staff back with Alex and Walt leading that, how do you push more runs across? And one of his answers was taking responsibility for the base run stuff of becoming better about knowing when to pull the trigger, about when to have guys let up. But I do agree with Kyle Isbell's sentiment that they still have to be an aggressive team because they don't produce enough runs the other way. But I think in a lot of sense it's got to be, one, having the right guys make those aggressive decisions, but two, getting picked off of bases is not aggression. That's not an aggressive. Trying to take an extra base and a bang play at the plate, that's a mistake you can live with. You can't live with guys getting picked off at the rate they were getting picked off.
Okay, we're talking Royals baseball with beat writer Jaylon Thompson and columnists Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam McDowell. And one piece of news that came several pieces of news came out of today's press conference, but one in particular is the return of hitting coach Alex Zumwalt. He'll be back next year. Boy, I can remember the spring and April and especially into May and June was the slump month I think they were 8-18 in the month of June, that there were all kinds of calls for Zumwalt's job. But he's coming back. Jalen, were you surprised by that?
I wasn't surprised by it because when you look at how the roles are constructed, they had some really good years individually from a lot of guys. I mean, you look at what Zumwalt has done with Michael Garcia and coming up with to him this offseason and saying, add in the toe tap back, stay on time, stay balanced at the plate. It produced an all-star season. And for a hitting coach to see that in a player and understand the makeup of his character, the makeup of his abilities on and off the field, to really come to him and allow him to grow and become who he has become, which is ideally someone that is going to be a key part of the Royals' future. I think that is a good feather in his cap. Look at the guys like Carter Jensen that came up. He's worked with him. Carter Jensen had an incredible September, especially for a rookie. Will that carry over next year? And people like to talk about, well, what about the guys like Jonathan India and Michael Massey and Kyle Isbell? Well, Kyle Isbell had arguably his best season that he's had in his career with the Royals this year. Michael Massey was hurt, but if you looked at what he did the last 2 weeks of September for the cover off the ball, he had 4 hits in Sunday's finale. Jonathan India, same thing. He knows he didn't play well, but he's a veteran who can turn around. So I think you have to look at it not necessarily holistically, but individual basis, and that's where you see Alex Zumwalt's input and value, like J.J. Picollo and Matt Cottrell was saying today.
Yeah, I think it's hard to get rid of your hitting coach when your core is really good. And, Bobby Witt Jr.'s had 2 great years. And I mean, he's been so good these last 2 years, it's easy to forget that he struggled when he came up. Vinny Pasquantino's put together 2 good years. J.J. Picollo was saying this, this might be the best back-to-back years that the Salvador Perez has had, because a lot of times when he's peaked, we've seen, an injury plague year or not a great year the following year. And then Jalen's right on the nose with the Michael Garcia. I mean, you can point to something that Alex Zumwalt did for the rationale behind the season that Michael Garcia had. But what else stood out to me about Zumwalt coming back was how much that they still envision change happening, even if it's not that position changing. I mean, I never thought I would hear the Royals organization say, as J.J. Picollo said today, that they're basically going to research whether they're striking out enough and whether it's a good thing that they're not striking out. I think, you hear that the coaching staff is coming back. You assume that everything's just going to be the same. And that just, the context and the details that we heard are not an indication of that.
When I heard that, I automatically thought, well, first of all, they don't walk a lot either. So they swing at a lot of pitches, which means they also swing at a lot of pitches out of the strike zone.
Yeah, they chase a lot. Ironically, they rarely swing at the first pitch, which seems to be more strategy than, to me, actually considering what the pitch is being offered. So I think that's something I still think there's tweaks they can make within an at-bat, for sure. And, I mean, let's face it. I mean, just because you're bringing a guy back doesn't mean that he doesn't need to improve too. Alex Zumwalt's going to have to make some improvements as well.
Quick question. It's related to all these things I think we're talking about. But it's just a puzzle to me. What do we make of where Jonathan India and Michael Massey fit on this team next year? And we heard them speak today that I think they sort of expressed regret that they tried India in the outfield, and that certainly second base is his best position. I don't know that the Massey outfield experiment was any more prosperous than it was for India. So, are we to think that as of now they're competing to do some kind of platoonish thing at second, or what? What's coming?
I think it's a completely different answer for both players. Like, Jonathan India has a spot on this team. Michael Massey is going to be battling, I think, for a spot on the roster, let alone the starting lineup when spring training hits next year.
Yeah, I think they know what Jonathan India can do, and by all accounts, they all said this was just a bad season for him. And he is someone that when he's going right, you can't replace his value in the lineup. They like Michael Massey as well. They like his power. His power is something they feel like he can tap into. But I think JJ alluded to something that could go under the radar. The expectation and the window they have now is to win. At what point are you waiting for someone's power to come versus we need to win games? Well, Jonathan India, you know that he's someone that if he's right, he'll help you win games. He's proven it already in the league. Michael Massey, we're still trying to see what that's going to be for them.
I just think the Michael Massey for 2 years ago just showed a great power stroke. I think he had 14 homers one year, 15 the next. Hit really well in the postseason in 2024. But he can't stay healthy. He just can't stay healthy. So, all right. So put your binoculars on, Jaylon, and tell me you're looking at spring training. Who's going to be the opening day, the first spring training game, second baseman and left fielder for the Royals?
I think Jonathan India will be at second base. I think they have to make sense of the Brady Singer trade. You've seen Brady Singer help the Reds get to the postseason on the Sunday, so they have to make it so that trade works out in their favor. And plus, there's money tied to him, and so I think he'll be at second base. I think Michael Massey depends what they do in left field, because I think if they only come into the spring training with Adam Frazier has been brought back, Michael Massey is still on the team fighting for a position, it's going to be either one of those guys in left. But it really depends on who they sign this offseason.
I think it's like if Michael Massey's starting in left field, like I think the front office has done a disservice, to be honest, because I think Michael Massey has real value, but if he's starting in left, he better have torn it up in spring training. I mean, you've got to have change in the outfield, and their biggest question is what's to do in right field, to be honest, with whether or not Jack Caglione is going to be the opening day right fielder. But
Right.
I think in left field, we heard that there's going to be, I think, mutual interest with Yastrzemski coming back, and I think he's proved his value, not just with his entire career, but specifically on this team. I think they like his leadership traits, and he gives them quality at bats. I mean, the type of, hey, we have to play different baseball a little bit. I mean, that I think fits with him. He's not the most athletic guy. He still plays that way, though. So left field is where you have to improve. You've got to get better in left field.
And Caglione has to improve as a hitter. I mean, you talk about right field. The right field is his if he hits, right?
I think so, right? I mean, they'd like that to be the case.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you look at his numbers, though, he was hitting the ball hard. It was just hitting it right at people. I think of just
hand on the ground.
Right? So I think that what I really saw about Caglione this year that I think will stand out moving forward in its future is they told him to go down to AAA, work on your play discipline, come back up, and stop swinging at so many pitches. He did exactly that. You look at his Walton numbers to his strikeouts when he came back up, he was completely night and day. I can remember games where he had 8 pitch at bat, 10 pitch at bat. You would have not saw that. He'd been whiffing at everything when he first came up. The power is real. The power is going to come. And also, I think that he has to be in right field because if he's in the AAA, like JJ said today, he's just going to kill it in AAA. So, I mean, he has to learn up here.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned this, and Dave Brown had asked him about it. I wrote about this during the season, but I think what he needs to improve is hitting the ball in the air more. And it's specifically pulling the ball in the air. When you look at like Cal Raleigh's season this year, and I believe that Caglione has that kind of power. He pulled the ball in the air 38.4% of the time. He's pulling the ball in the air. Cags is at 15%. Like, that is a drastic difference. And the number one way he's going to hit more balls out of the ballpark, because he's got immense power, is he's got to use it.
Cool. Yeah. All right. One more question to you guys before we wrap it up. It's another look back. Can we agree on who the Royals pitcher and player of the year is for 2025? I think the pitcher of the year is an easier answer than player of the year.
To the Estevez?
Yes. What do you think?
I like it. I could see Michael Walker because Michael Walker was the anchor of the starting pitching staff when they really needed
Okay.
it. But
Well, this is the thing, right? There is a Royals pitcher and player of the year award. I think we all have votes on this. Estevez led baseball in saves, but Walker's a good call. Noah Cameron, I think.
it's a good word.
Good vote, too. I
It's
think. Yeah.
I'd vote for Walker, like Jaylon.
Would you Walker?
Walker.
I'd vote Estevez. To let you vote.
I'd be between Estevez and Noah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just because so unexpected out of Noah.
Okay.
And so essential.
More conflict here than I expected for pitcher of the year. How about player of the year? Let's go around the table. Jaylon, who's player of the year?
I'm gonna go Vinny Pasquantino. Batting third in the lineup, and really his whole story, his arc, beginning of the year was terrible. He couldn't hit the ball. I think he hit like 150 in March, April. But from there on, he was the engine of this Royals offense. On RBIs, home runs. Really, I thought that he could have a breakout year. He proved he could have a breakout year. So
32 home runs, 113 RBIs. Big power year for Vinny.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vinny would tell you that he's thinking about what he didn't do, but I'd vote for Vinny. I like the Vinny vote.
Okay. How about you, Sam?
I'm kind of surprised by those things. I think it's a two-person race between Maikel Garcia and Bobby Wood Jr. I don't have the voter fatigue yet with Bobby Wood Jr., so like he is their best player, and he still was their best player, even if he didn't have the same numbers he did a year.
I'm more conscious. That's the problem for me. I'm a little conscious of how the numbers came down, but I mean, I can't say it's a bad vote.
yeah, it's not a bad vote. I just think Bobby he had a down year for his expectations, but
He did, but like he's still gonna be he should be third in MVP.
He is going to be. He should have finished behind Raleigh and Judge.
Yeah, he should be third in MVP, and like Vinny Pasquantino had a great year, but he's not getting MVP votes this year.
And so what? Bobby F4 was third in baseball, I believe, and so
His WAR this year was I think it was 8 on the F4, which is Fangraphs WAR, and let's see where
7 on Baseball America.
those other guys finished
Probably substantially more than Vinny's.
with the Royals. Yeah, I mean, positional value is going to have a major play in that. I mean, so Bobby Wood Jr. is at 8.0, Maikel Garcia is at 5.6, and then no one else. Vinny's third at 1.5. So a pretty big fall off after those two guys. And just real quick, I mean, pitcher WAR, Michael Walk is at 3.6, Chris Bubich is at 3.3. Reagan's actually still finished at 2.1. Noah Cameron at 1.8. Stevis at 1.1.
Interesting. Really,
It doesn't. I mean, I think Fangraphs has some catching up to do on the value of relievers still.
okay. I love that there was disagreement here.
What's your idea? Where are you going?
Well, I'm Bobby Witt and Carlos Estevez. For player and pitcher. So yeah, Witt over Garcia actually. I'd have Vinny third, Salvi fourth, player of the year. Anyway, great conversation, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm going to have some final thoughts. And before we go, I'm going to stick with baseball and let you know about an event scheduled for this weekend. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum's Hall of Game ceremony is Saturday at the Sheridan Crown Center. The event will honor some of baseball's greatest managers, including World Series winners Cito Gaston and Dusty Baker, along with Jerry Manuel and Willie Randolph. For our young listeners, ask your parents or grandparents about Willie Randolph and his days with the Yankees and his playoff battles against the Royals. Contact the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum for ticket information. On the college football front, Kansas State got back into the win column with a victory over Central Florida, and that's the team Kansas faces on Saturday at Orlando. Not such a great weekend for the Jayhawks. They lost at home to Cincinnati before a sellout crowd in their new stadium. Where's the defense, KU? Missouri had the week off, or they've got the week off, and then a huge game at home against Alabama in Columbia. Can't wait for that one. Okay, that'll do it for this week. Thanks to our producers, Randy Mason, Monty Davis, Suzanne Hogan, and Gabriella Lacey, and to our editors, Jeff Rosen and Scott Chasen. I'm Blair Kirchhoff, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City.